Karsch, Scott Anderson, 97 on the ticket, responding to the Mike Tannenbaum trade proposal he had this morning on Get Up. That the Lions moved 3 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and Jahmyr Gibbs for Myles Garrett. And look, we sit here and we take calls and people say, make an offer they can't refuse. There's an offer they can't refuse. Would you do it? 248-539-9797. Let's go to John. You're on 97 on the ticket. Hi, John.
Hello, fellas. How are you?
What's up?
All right, John.
Hey, I can only say this. I mean, to the Mike Tannenbaums of the world. I mean, I guess the goal of Get Up and people like Tannenbaum is to just put something so ludicrous out in the atmosphere that people are compelled to respond. Which I guess it worked, because I would bet, as a lifelong 60-year-old Detroit Lions fan, that most of us would balk at even a straight-up Jahmyr Gibbs for Myles Garrett trade, let alone 3 additional picks. This has turned into an offensive league over the last 5 to 10 years. And Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the most dynamic offensive players in the league, and he's very young. As a fan, I would not trade Jahmyr Gibbs straight up for Myles Garrett. I wouldn't trade, if you took Garrett out of it or took Gibbs out of it, I wouldn't trade 3 firsts for Garrett, especially when there are other difference makers out there. But to contemplate a trade which includes Jahmyr Gibbs, I think is completely off the table.
Can I ask you a question, John? Were you ever in the
Sure.
make them an offer they can't refuse camp?
No, I mean,
Okay.
it's silly.
Well, then there. Yeah.
It's silly.
It sounds bold when you say it, right? It sounds
Make
bold.
a statement like at all costs.
Yeah,
and all that.
and there's the guys. We've never been to a Super Bowl, and this is what I talked about yesterday. You don't want your GM acting with the desperation of 60 years. You want them acting with the motivation of year 4, because it's desperation of 60 years. You start doing really desperate things, and this feels like an example of it. Like, God bless Tannenbaum, but no, I don't know anybody would do this.
I think if you polled, your listeners, what would be interesting is to say, okay, if a trade included Jahmyr Gibbs, how far would you go in addition to that in terms of picks? And I don't think you would even get to Jahmyr and a single first-round pick. You might get to Jahmyr and a second or a third or something. But even that, I think, would be outrageous because, again, this is an offensive league, and he is one of the most dynamic players in the league. And I just can't imagine giving him up for just about anybody.
I hear you, and it's an offensive league, like you said. I've changed my mind on that 4 or 5 years ago and have stuck with it. And yeah, I mean, now. If anybody would say, yeah, like we got a feedback here, let me read it. I would 100% make this trade. Garrett is one of the 5 best players in the league and is a necessity. Gibbs is okay and a luxury, but you don't need 2 running backs.
I think the Tannenbaum proposal is too much, and I would also disagree with John the caller. If they wanted just Jahmyr Gibbs straight up for Myles Garrett, I would trade that straight up 10 times out of 10. I love Jahmyr Gibbs.
He's making me think, though. I would have thought the same thing, but he is making me think. Like, it is an offensive league. Yep. You don't want to give away from the core. You're 1 injury away from having, a backfield of Reynolds and Vaki.
Yeah, well, I think you're thinking short term for this year as opposed to longer term, with what it looks like years down the road. And because if you had, look, I don't know if he's even worth mentioning because it was just a comment that he said. But suffice it to say, I would do it if it was straight up 1 for 1. But that's not at all what he proposed. No, that's 3 first to second, and Jahmyr Gibbs is a far cry for just Jahmyr Gibbs for Myles Garrett. Matt, you're next. Hi, Matt.
Hey, guys. Got a question for you.
Sure.
I'm thinking we'd do just about anything, right? We'd make that trade if we could be guaranteed to win the Super Bowl, right? Everybody agrees on that.
If you were guaranteed to win a Super Bowl, yeah. If you got the impossible guarantee, yes.
Would you still make that? Would you make that trade if you could be guaranteed to get there to that game?
No. Yep. I would not. And here's why. I think the team last year was good enough to get there, and some extreme and unlikely circumstance contributed to them not getting there. And I think this year's team is better. So I don't want to make that trade when I already think they're good enough just to get there.
What if you could sweeten it up a little bit more and guarantee Hutch would be there too?
What do you mean? Guarantee?
That Hutchinson would be healthy enough
Knowing
to play
that he'd be back with you. So you're making that trade almost putting yourself in the best possible situation that you're probably going to win that game.
So you make the trade and you think that the timeline medically has Hutch playing in the Super Bowl. I still probably wouldn't do it because I think as much as the Hutch thing playing in the Super Bowl, which is a great problem to have if we are worried about who is healthy for the Super Bowl, I don't know that you get peak Hutch. You get just off injury Hutch.
I don't know if we want to do the hypothetical thing. I mean, that gets a little crazy down the road.
Yeah.
Let's just kind of stay within the restraints of what we're working with here.
Yeah, which is a Tannenbaum proposal.
Yeah.
From Will, there's a difference between making an offer you can't refuse and pure stupidity. Unnamed texter said, everyone said F them picks. No one said give them part of our core, but you go ahead and spin your narrative. Ooh, that's some hostility. No, we got more calls that said make them an offer they can't refuse. We had some that said F them picks, but most calls said make them an offer they can't refuse, and that's what we're going with.